are watching The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman, exclusively on ABC Amber TV.
Mama yo, now your boy go get her. Blue Jay Bonders. Mama you kind, Mama you're beautiful, Mama you good, Mama you're wonderful. No woman like you, Mama. No woman like you, Mama. Thank God for you, Mama. Thank God for you, Mama. 'Cause you gave me life, oh Mama. Queen of my life, oh Mama. I go love you for life, oh Mama. 'Cause you love me so, oh Mama. From small begin, I never forget all the suffer when you suffer for me. Oh yeah, yeah. All the pain and the troubles where I put you through. I remember when money no be there and chop no be there for her. You be the try your best. You go run around to find us something where we go chop. When I dey sick, you know the sleep. You go the cry all night. You go hold me tight, start to pray, say God make you help my oh Lord. Ooh, I will yeah choma. I'm funga na better yeah funga choma. I'm bombing na better yeah bomb choma. Enga na chinum yeah ga choma. Mama, I will yeah choma. I'm funga na better yeah funga choma. I'm bombing na better yeah bomb choma. Enga na chinum yeah ga choma. Enga choma mama. Enga na chinum yeah ga choma. Chinum yeah ga choma. Oh, you gave me life, oh Mama. Queen of my life, oh Mama. I will love you for life, oh Mama. 'Cause you love me so, oh Mama. Hey, hey, are you there? Pina, no one there. Ale mama, selelelele. Ale mama, selelelele. Ale mama, shekelelelele. Ale mama, you're my motivation. You gave me the best education, mama. The song where I sing I'm for you. Now it's special dedication to you. Oh yeah. I know say every night and day you pray say make a mama. The God where you the pray I'm for heaven down. Give me this inspiration, mama. The song where I sing I'm for you. Now to show my appreciation to you. Who be a warrior choma. I funga na better yeah funga choma. I'm bombing na better yeah bomb choma. Engana chinum yeah ga choma. Mama warrior choma. I funga na better yeah funga choma. I'm bombing na better yeah bomb choma. Engana chinum yeah ga choma. Chinum yeah ga choma. Chinum yeah ga choma. Yeah ga choma. You gave me life, oh Mama. Queen of my life, queen of my life. I will love you for life. I will love you for life. 'Cause you love me so, oh Mama. You gave me life, Mama. Queen of my life, Mama. I will love you for life, oh Mama. 'Cause you love me so, oh Mama. Selelelele. Ale mama, selelelele. Ale mama, selelelele. Ale mama, shekelelele. Ale mama, selelelele. Ale mama, selelelele. Ale mama, selelelele. Ale mama, selelelele. Ale mama. Oh, that's so. That's so. Mother's Day. That's so.
Hello there. Welcome to The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman. Let me seize this opportunity to those of our Ambazonians in the United States of America to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. And if you celebrate Thanksgiving also in other parts of the world, I wish you a happy Thanksgiving. This is The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman. And our theme is We Are Staying the Course, as always. And today with me is Dr. Yaya, our Chief of Staff of the Interim Government of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. And I want to also start by saying that your regular host, Ma Rachel, wasn't able to be here today. So I'm hosting today on her behalf. And we're all looking forward for her resuming her post, hopefully next Friday. Let me also greet those who are watching from the home front. This material that we come here every Friday is basically to keep you engaged, to keep you motivated, to make you understand that this is a journey we are on together and we will stay the course because we are fighting for the Ambazonia we want. And again, to those who are in ground one and other parts of the world, I want to welcome you to Horizon. Please stay tuned. Dr. Yaya, it's my pleasure to have you here as my guest. Welcome to the Horizon.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mape. It's always a pleasure being with you on the show or on any show at all. And of course, being in touch with Ambazonia and all the well wishers of this great nation of Africa, the 55th nation to be. So, yeah, I want to greet everyone on Ground Zero, on Home Front, on Ground One, wherever you are in the diaspora. And please share so that we can have an interesting discussion on various topics that are listed on the flyer. So kudos to you, all our ARFs and all our refugees, IDPs, prisoners of war, you name all of our people, in different circumstances. Tune in and share and invite more people. Thank you.
So I see you're wearing orange and I'm wearing orange, and there must be a significance to this color. Today happens to be the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and Girls. Today, November 25th. It's a UN observed day worldwide, and the color for this to recognize this day is orange, because orange gives the tells you about being hopeful in terms of eliminating problems that are facing our people. So that's why the orange color is what we are wearing today. Dr. Yaya, we will just start by talking about this topic, end of violence against women, Women's Day. And I just want to start by reading some few statistics, and then I will have you talk about it. It says that 1 in 3 women have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner. So that is just statistics that has to do with close relationship. This includes behaviors like slapping, shoving, pushing, and small degrees of physical violence. And then it says that worldwide, 1 in 5 women, again, I was listening to a video, they said that as we speak, 5 women every hour are being killed or affected by violence against women. So I don't have
Okay.
the yes.
I am so sorry to interrupt. What was the first statistic you gave? 1 out of every 3 women? The
Yes,
very
it
first
says
one.
1 out of every 3 women have experienced some form of physical violence by an
Okay.
intimate partner.
Cool.
So this is really a large number, 1 out of 3. So, because when we talk about violence, we're not talking about we're talking about a range of behaviors that are meted on women, ranging from slapping, abusing, beating, um, uh, even emotional. So the spectrum is wide. So 1 in out of 3 women experience this. And then the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women more talks about also the fact that a lot of women are being killed, and some of the statistics they don't get because the nations in that are part of the UN nation do not report these statistics. So they get the data only from about one third of the nations that are UN countries. So the data is skewed. But without going more into the data, let's just talk about what this day signifies, why this day came into existence in the first place. Dr. Yaya, I'll have you comment on that.
Yeah, Mape, thank you again. I call you the mother of Amazonia for obvious reasons because you're the one who has all this, the calendar of the very important dates, and you make sure that you remind us. And this is no joke because this is how we get to know about these things and actually make them aware, bring that awareness to our communities before they can be changed. So I really want to thank you personally for actually taking upon yourself, on top of your, job description, to make sure that important dates are remembered by Ambazonia. This is a culture that we are starting even now before we actually get to Boya. So this is very, very important. We have all these days, Breast Cancer Day, uh, um, International Day Against Violence, and all of this. There are so many of them, and there's a reason why we have these days. A lot of times, talking amongst ourselves, with friends, you hear people make comments like, "Oh, as for Africa, you can forget about it. There's just chaos. Nothing works." And the question is, why is it that way? Why do we believe that things don't work in Africa? And why do we think or believe that things work in the Western world, so to say? We are all human beings with all weaknesses and all shades and forms. So the good, the bad, the ugly, you have them in every society. I don't believe that God actually created Africa to stay backwards. So the only difference I can tell, I think, is the fact that people have actually pinpointed the ills of the society, and you have had people who took upon themselves to chase or to follow this cause. We call it activism, be it against human rights or specifically against women's human rights or children's rights. And they have pursued this very, very passionately and formed different groups, different pressure groups, talked about this, organized grassroots awareness and sensitization to the point where the governments are actually pushed to make changes at the level of the legislation. So I think what I can say is, Mape, thank you for bringing this up. The whole idea is not even to quote the statistics. I must disappoint you that I didn't really have the time to do any research. That's why I was taking down the notes as you were talking. But I think the goal of this is to raise awareness. It is to tell our people that whilst we are, building and dreaming of this great nation, it should also be a nation that is founded on some moral background, a nation that is fair to its people, a nation that protects the vulnerable. And we know in every society, the women, the children are the most vulnerable. And that is why it is important to actually talk about and be part of this activism to stop violence against women. I hope I didn't go off topic.
No, you didn't go off topic. When I mentioned that statistics 1 in 3, I must apologize that statistics is what is in the United States of America. Worldwide, really, between the age of 15 and 49, it says 1 in every 10 women in the past 12 months, 1 in every 10 women and girls aged 15 to 49 were suspected of having experienced violence, could be sexual or physical, by an intimate partner. So that is still a huge number, 1 in 10 women. Um, Go ahead. You were going to say something?
Okay, I think maybe now that you're talking, yeah, the question, part of the question comes back to mind. And it is really important what you said. What is violence actually against women and girls? It is
Yes.
an endless topic. It is an endless topic. And I think, as I think you shared with me the information that this is actually a 16-day campaign because
Mm-hmm.
of the importance of this kind of hidden social ill, the United Nations, in connection or in conjunction with the women in the UN, it's interesting that we have such an office, women in the UN. So
Yes.
maybe we will be pushing to join that that office as well. They have actually carved out 16 days to commemorate or to raise awareness, to sensitize the world, and it is actually a global campaign against violence against women and girls. And because, believe it or not, this is something, even let's even focus just on physical violence, maybe, or just domestic violence. This is something that cuts across
Mm-hmm.
all races, trust me. We can talk more about this till the cows come home. So there is nobody, you cannot look at somebody and say, oh, this person is capable of doing this or that. So it is a very important topic, and it is a shady topic because, uh, it's something that the victims are ashamed to talk about because it is not a good experience to relive. And also, we have people, or maybe elders or role models that others look up to in other spheres of life, who actually engage in such activities on a private basis. So it is something, as you can imagine, that is underspoken. The numbers are actually hidden. So whatever statistics we have, trust me, we have more. The actual number of cases more than that. So I think 1 out of 3 experiencing violence. That's a very high number. That's 33%. That is really high. In medicine, Mapia, you may tell us better. When you have a medication that has, 1-2%, of side effects, that when you project that on the entire population, that actually translates to lives. So, and that is a huge percentage. Here we're talking about 33%, you know, and just trying to think about the scope of what violence could mean. The context matters. There are so many different contexts of violence. The commonest, or to me, one of the first that should be addressed is domestic violence, because we come from our homes. Our homes are the safest places. So every woman or every girl should feel safe in their own household. But you see a lot of domestic violence in households related between partners. I mean, relationships, husband, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever. And also, there is. I was listening to some material that Mape shared. Interestingly, uh, it's not only to do with relationship, love relationship or partner, so to say, but also family members. You also have family members who actually are, perpetrators of this violence against their own girls or against their own females or sisters. And the contexts are different. It could be in terms of, in the context of being at home, or being a wife or being a partner, or it could be simply a young girl who is working for somebody and is being maltreated, being molested. It could also be in a religious context where people actually think, or a certain where there are certain codes of conduct or expected standards of how women are expected to carry themselves. I mean, not only religion, in a tradition as well. And if the woman goes against that or does something contrary to that, she's probably seen as an outcast and is actually treated as that. And that even reminds me, Mape, going as far back as in the Bible. Remember the woman who, I'm not sure if I remember the name, who committed adultery.
Mm-hmm.
And, people were stoning her. And
Yeah.
then Jesus came and said, well, if there's any of you who is not guilty, you raise your hand, or. and everybody drop down their stones because
Yeah.
they're also guilty. But it goes as far back as then. Everybody does it, but a woman did it, and this woman had to be stoned to death. So we have the cultural context, we have the religious context, we have the domestic context at home. You also have that at work, you know, and in our communities. When I think of, cases of rape, for example, where a young girl is not even able to report it because she's afraid that the first reaction she'll get is she'll be beaten. Either she'll be beaten or she'll be forced to stay quiet or she'll actually be yelled at as a bad child who is trying to break the family. So it's a very broad topic. I hope that within this 16 days of the global sensitization, that we'll have more time to go through maybe the different aspects of it. Thank you.
Dr. Yaya. So this campaign that you mentioned, starting today, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and Girls, has a theme, Unite. And again, you mentioned that it's a 16-day. It starts today and it ends on December 10th, which is the Human Rights Day. So they choose a very important day for this campaign to end, December 10th, which is Human Rights Day, human rights for everybody. And the theme, unite and basically to build activism to end violence against women and girls. It's such an important topic because women and girls really are the foundation of every good home. Because if you have women that have been battered and abused, and they end up being supposed to have their own families, they may not be the best parents because of their history, because of what has happened to them. So they say a good home is really a home where you have a woman that is strong and reliable and really can tolerate difficulties in life. Some of these women, because of what they've gone through, they resort to other ways to cope. Uh, in the United States of America, you have people on taking drugs. I don't know if that is prevalent in Africa yet. But Dr. Yaya, one thing I forgot to mention, these statistics also mention that this for the union, this violence is highest in Africa compared to, I don't know whether it's because I know you don't always like that thing when they talk about Africa being in a negative sense, but they really have the data showing that it's more prevalent in Africa. And let's think about it. We grew up, where we probably saw our. Now we're talking about violence against women and girls. We grew up where we have cases, and you've already mentioned some of them, where family members maltreat girls because they think about girls as a weaker sex, and sometimes that's why some people do what they do, that they don't have rights. It took a long time for people to be sending their girl child to school. So when they look at the woman as a weaker sex, they tend to treat them poorly compared to the sons or male child. And then we also have men in our society, which is so patriarchal. You have men that will beat their wives because of one reason or the other. And if we don't change this mentality that men and women are equal in God's eyes. Yes, the man is the head of the household, but that head of the household has to respect others in the household. The fact that the man has the authority, the power, doesn't mean that you will beat your wife or sexually abuse your wife or beat your children, treat them as second class creatures, because you then bring cause problems that transcends generations, because people learn from behaviors. They learn things some of them things that it may be normal. A son, a boy child, we next seen the father doing something like this, may think that it's a normal behavior and carry that to his own family, and then generations from generations, you get battered children that cannot be very productive in society. I remember the goal is for us to have societies that have people that are willing to are able to be the best, able to have their potential explored, because we all have talents given to us by God. So that story that you mentioned, Dr. Yaya, about the woman in the Bible that Jesus asked that he who has not sinned to first cast the first stone, and nobody could, because we are all sinners. But more importantly, as this topic is we're talking about this topic today, what do we have to do? And Dr. Yah, we're just thinking loud here and talking. What should we be doing in our own society to stop, to end violence against girls and women? Let's take it back home to where we come from, knowing the experiences that we've seen. What things do you think we can be doing or talking about?
Okay, thank you, Mape. Very, very important question. Yeah, but before we get there, you did mention the statistics in Africa. I know I am. I don't know how to describe myself, but I am also a fair person because I grew up witnessing that. So, but I can also testify that you have that in the Western world. The reason it is controlled is because you have laws, you have legislation that is now being put in place because of the movements that have begun, to talk about these things, and eventually, raising awareness to the point where some of these are being enshrined in as law. So this is what we need to do. We need to start first of all by raising the awareness. To be honest, it is not pointing fingers and saying, "Oh, males are bad and females are always good." You also have females who are violent. They are violent towards their partners or inappropriately towards their children and even their communities. So what we're saying here is, of course, we're talking about the majority and the fact that the female gender is seen as the vulnerable one, is the weaker one, but yet it is not protected. So the first thing, like you made a very important point, you said habits or attitudes. Well, habits. I can't really quote you, but what I understood was that what a child grows up seeing, that's what they take as normalcy for them, and by default they just operate like that. So if our generations, growing up in this patriarchic, I don't know how to pronounce the word, um, a setup where a male has the final say, and he may very well have the final say. We are talking about that respect of even acknowledging that another human being has a contribution to make. That is even a different level. That might even be intellectual abuse. That is, to me, even milder than talking about the physical aspect of it. When a young boy grows up seeing his father bash the mom all the time, he knows that, or as a form of communication. Unfortunately, probably this male grew up in that traditional setup, which promotes that concept that when a man speaks, a woman has nothing to say. And if the woman has an opinion, therefore she must be bashed, she must be beaten to stop talking. So when a young boy grows up saying that, that is probably his default position, even though he didn't like it when it was being done against his mother or his sister or his auntie. So the first thing is to raise awareness, to teach ourselves and unlearn those bad practices that you communicate, you correct by slapping or beating your wife, especially. You know, so it is something that has to be conscious. We need to talk about it, and that's why we need more activists, because it took an activist. I think I read the lady is called Turana Burke or something in 2006 who started this activism against violence. When I was in Australia, it was actually surprising to me because a lot of women were being killed through domestic violence. It actually became a policy. In fact, when you see patients, it was very important to go deep in the social history because, mind you, and it came out in fact, from a personal experience. Some patients will come around and babble about things that didn't really fit. And until you actually dug deep, you realize that there's something they were hiding and they just couldn't bring that up because there's something they're ashamed of, you know. And so there was that policy that you have to actually dig into the social history, and if you have any suspicion, just like we do with kids, if a child comes to the surgery and the doctor suspects any form of abuse or swelling or redness or wounds and all those things, or a very intimidated child, it is your duty to actually hint the social services. I know sometimes that can be overdone, it can be overreported and can lead to other issues, but it is part of that. It's a result of that awareness raising that people are then, we have our antennas actually put up, and that has saved lives because we take it for granted when we think about our friends or things that we've experienced. At least I know I have been a victim myself. I hate to use the word victim because I see myself as a conqueror, making the right decisions to move from a toxic relationship. But actually, you have had people who have stayed there because they are scared, because of the fact that they don't know if the world is going to accept them, if their families are going to support them, or their churches or their religious setups. So awareness, sensitization is very important. We must stick up our heads for what is correct, regardless of whether it's not a popularity contest. It's not about whether males will clap, because sometimes you have the feeling that we tend to actually beat ourselves down as women. Sometimes, respecting your partner doesn't mean you have lost your own sense of identity. That's not the meaning of that. It doesn't mean you don't have an opinion. What we need to teach ourselves is healthy communication in relationships. And we need to have different informal and maybe non-threatening. I'm going now to the question of how can we change this. Of also teaching the men how to cope with their egos, how to cope with their insecurities, because I don't blame them completely, because I think you are what you are based on what you grew up in or around, and also your personality and then your life experiences. So we have to unlearn these things. It's a systemic problem or systematic problem, and therefore we have to use all means. I don't even know whether this is something we can even teach our kids in school. Respect for your fellow human being, because if you start by doing that, then you will see a woman as a human being in the first place, and you don't have to maltreat this person because they're of the different sex. And so, if we start to have that, like civil, as part of our curriculum, and also in the non-formal context of maybe having men's meetings or outings, and you have topics like this that men may not feel comfortable talking about in the presence of women, but you have a role model teaching them how to deal with some toxic masculinity, you know, and being confident and accommodating, and looking for better ways of communicating frustration and anger, which we all have. Yeah. So, yeah, that's one of the things I can think of for now. I'm sure there are many.
Yeah, Dr. Yeah, you've mentioned a lot of information out there. These are really common sense things that you've mentioned. You talked about raising awareness, which is what we are doing today, raising awareness. And so people don't think that this is a subject that is a taboo. You talk about unlearning bad behaviors. So again, when you raise awareness, you tell people about certain things that are considered normal, that they are not normal, they are wrong, and have people unlearn bad behaviors. But one thing that you mentioned that I think is so important is education from the beginning. If you teach the male child that your sister or the female is just as human as you are. If you slap them, it's painful, you're hurting them. You don't slap them because they are women, because these are crimes against people because they are women. If you slap them because they're women, then you're committing a crime. You start teaching them early on, those sons will grow up and respect women. So it's a thing about education from the get-go. So I like that. The Ambazonia we're fighting for, these are things that we'll have to include in our curriculum to teach our sons from the get-go to respect women. And of course, vice versa, women respect their sons and male child or boys. One topic that we have not really talked about much, Dr. Yaya, is rape, sexual violence. Let's touch that a little bit because it's so common in Africa. Um, Something that is common in households and also common happening in our war right now, where the military may be raping our girls. But let's start by talking about domestic rape, where family members, maybe an uncle is staying with a family, and there's a young girl there, or under 18. That's even the worst case. Even I've heard cases of girls being raped when they are like, oh, okay, our technician is showing example of battered, when people get beat up and their
Yeah.
noses are broken and bruised. So I'll just comment that on that briefly before I go back to the rape. You have cases where people are beaten that's almost to dead, where they have to go to the hospitals. And so and we see most of these things that we have in United States of America or in the diaspora. They have pictures, they have proof. You rarely see such things in Cameroon. I don't know whether we have examples of people being battered where they will take pictures and educate the community to say that these are things that you cannot treat a fellow human being like that. Um, okay, so I'm going to go back and talk about what I was talking about, rape, where kids as young as 5, 6, 7 are raped by older men or younger boys. This is violence against children. And we just want to say that in households where things like that happen, where sometimes somebody who's an older person is aware and keeps quiet, you are encouraging such activities to continue, because when you keep quiet, it's not going to stop. It's going to continue. The perpetrator is going to think that it's something that they can continue doing, and they will continue doing it. So this topic about rape in our households, where family members commit such heinous crimes on young girls, we need to talk about it. We should not shove it under the bed. And if someone is aware and doesn't keep an end to it, you're an accomplice. And one day, it may even happen to somebody that you really love and care about, because sometimes people keep quiet because they may not care about who it's happening to. It may happen to somebody who you love and care about. Uh, and then let's talk about the men themselves, the fathers, the uncles, the big brothers or nephews that commit such acts on a young girl or on a girl. Because remember, in the United States of America, if you're over 18, you're an adult. But the thing we need to point out here for those age groups is that if a girl who is 18 or older says no and this continues, that is rape. If somebody says no and you force yourself on them, that is rape. So we're talking about two things here. The one that is for a child that is powerless, that cannot say, that is afraid. Or sometimes they bribe these kids with little trophies like candies or money and all the like, and the child doesn't really know better. You know, that is rape. Dr. Yaya, I'd like you to comment on that, please.
Yeah, Mape. That's a very painful one, because it's not just violence on your body. Um, It's not just physical violence, but really invasion of your most intimate part of you, you know. And when that's not consensual, as is the case, with young girls that grow up in homes where these things happen, it's very bad. We must call it out that way. It is very bad. And I agree to an extent with the statistics, because sometimes I believe that our traditions, our customs encourage some of these behaviors. Whether that was intended, I am not sure, but that is the consequence. And therefore, we must look at re educating ourselves and reteaching ourselves that we must not inherit everything in the name of tradition. And tradition also adapts with time, with changing times. I think it even goes as far back as the custom of marriage, where bride price is being paid, and a woman is therefore seen as a property of the male. Therefore, I own you, and anytime I feel like I want to get intimate, or I want to have sex or make love, whatever you call it, um, you don't have the right to say no, whether or not you're in the mood, because this is how some traditions look at it. A woman should never say no to the husband, even in terms of religion, in religious settings. I have heard people preach that, and we can quote all what we quote. The simple thing is, if we say God is a God of love, how then would He be happy with me being forced into a situation when I don't feel like it? I don't think. I think some in these contexts we also need to use common sense and say what is humane, and we should be careful in how we interpret some things that we read and how we pass that on, because in our context of tradition and church and so on, sometimes people just follow others because yes, this is something you must accept. So our tradition, they do not we don't have the tendency to call out wrong, especially to a strong person. What I'm saying is, if, for example, a child is raped in family A, and the mother knows that, or the father, because that uncle is a powerful man or he is regarded in the society, they find it difficult to confront him. And this is where we have to break that. It is not a question of you're my relative, I like you, I don't like you. It is a law, and you have broken the law. You've committed a crime, and therefore you should be held accountable. So this is where we need to take this. The only way to actually bring change. Let me give a silly example. If I didn't have speed limits, I would race, with my car as fast as I can, because I always find myself rushing. But because I've had so many fines, which are painful, I am careful because I don't want to lose my driver's license. It's as simple as that. If we do not we do not raise awareness to the point of changing the laws or making laws that are going to protect these vulnerable people, trust me, nothing's going to change, because we live in a society where if we don't have laws, there's intimidation, there's fear, particularly in the setting of Africa or our country where we came from. Um, because the distribution of wealth is unfair. In the Western world, you can be chucked out of your home, and you know that you have a social system that you can seek refuge, and you will get that. But we don't have those facilities back home. So the young girl is afraid, first of all, to raise her voice, because the next thing is she'll be put out of the house, and where does she go to? So she leaves from a bad situation to a worse one, because she doesn't know if she's going to fall. The most likely thing is that she's going to fall in the hands of another man, yeah, who is going to continue this cycle of violence, because the man knows that she doesn't have any support, and therefore he can miss or maltreat her whichever way he wants. So it's not an easy thing, and it is not a finger pointing thing to one gender or not, but it is a must do. It is something that we must, as a people, agree that it is important if we want to train and raise as stable individuals in the society. Mape mentioned that these things go along, with generational issues. What do I say? Inheritance, where people grow up losing their self confidence, not knowing themselves, and a lot of people wear suits and they might drive all the posh cars, be bash in all these things, but really deep inside, a spirit is hurt because it goes deep down because no one has ever given that person a chance to actually express what they felt, and that person feels cheated because they cannot understand why they should be treated that way, and these people will go without any reprimand. And above all, they still see these people, the abusers, being the strong people in society. So it puts you in a situation of fear because those people are considered strong people. And in our context, where we depend on somebody who is going to pay my school fees or feed me, I risk being thrown in the dumps. Yeah,
Wow, wow.
it's a
Thank you
tough
so
one.
much. You know, I can just give one example here of just what you've said. Um, I had this lady a couple of years ago who used to come braid my hair when I used to wear braids. I think maybe it's been 5 years ago. And she told me a personal story. We were talking, and then she confided in me how she was abused by by a father, right? She was abused by a father. And this is where, let me put this, a stepfather. But this is not the end of it, because she also made me understand that there are kids in that house that are still going through the same thing. So can you imagine, she left the situation back home and she's in the United States, and then she's communicating with other kids right now that are going through the same thing with the same man. I was so mad, and I said, how can you guys leave this happen for so many years? You've been in the state for so many years. This happened to you so many years ago, and it's happening to relatives still staying in that home with the same man. So it's a crime that this person has gotten away with for so long and just thinks that it's normal. And the she told me that, you know what, when I go back home, I'll just kill him. So she's come to the
Oh.
States and realized that in the United States of America, some people just resort to just picking up a gun and shooting. And she thinks that that is a solution. When she goes back home, she'll just kill him, you know. But that is what we put women through. Some of these women, they will have to resort to taking guns or taking a knife to, because of the anger, to
Yeah, I can
defend
imagine.
themselves and kill the perpetrator, because the government or the country is not taking that responsibility. So Dr. Yaya, you made a good point that these are things that the governments have to come up with rules, and this is the Ambazonia we're fighting for. We have to come up with rules where and a safe haven for these women, where if things like this happen, they get reported and these people get persecuted, so that it
Yeah.
doesn't continue. We're going to be gradually changing to the next topic, which is World Day for Children. But I don't know whether you want to have a closing comment on this topic as we go to the next topic, Dr. Yaya.
Wow. Yeah. Violence against women and girls. It is a very, very important topic. I think my appeal would just be that we take it up, we be bold. To bring change is not easy because you're going to have fingers pointing at you. Oh, of course, in our context, they'll say, yes, that woman, because you don't go to school, you want show now, say, be this, it be that, it be that. That's not the issue. Going to school or not going to school, right is right and wrong is wrong. I asked my grandmother who happened to my grandfather had three wives, and I teased her because each time we go home and she'll be like, oh, go and greet grandma there, go and greet my before we even sit down. So I was really wondering. I'm like, because I said to myself, can you deal with this? I'm like, how did she do that? And I asked her, I said, grandma, do you really love the other women? Like, you don't even let us sit and we have to go around and this. She explained to me and said, my daughter, you have to take them as your sisters in order to live in peace. So that was a wise answer she gave me. And what I understood is that they didn't really have much choice. They didn't have much choice. So it's not about going to school. It is the going to school has helped us in the sense that we understand our basic rights, and if we have the rights, why not use them? And I used to tell some men who use this silly excuse, "Oh, you people have gone to school, and therefore this and that." And we are not saying that because you are educated, you have to disrespect your husband. But what we are saying is that you, first of all, you're an individual and you have a right also to your opinion. And I ask these men who say this about their partners, that they have their daughters they are so proud of. You need to hear them talk about their daughters. And my question to them is, you're so proud of your daughter. Oh, she's this, she has done this, she's achieved all of this. I say, would you like your daughter to be treated the way you treat your wife? It's a difficult answer for many to answer,
Yeah.
you know. So is it that the woman beside you is not your blood relationship and therefore some piece of wood? Because if you cherish it, a lot of them will be like, "Oh my God, nobody can touch my daughter. I'll screen them before they come." Okay. So, but that's somebody's daughter that is being abused, and that's the mother of that child. So, anyway, I'm probably drifting. It's a very big topic. I think the long and short is that we have grown and adopted some bad habits. We may not be responsible for this, but we can change this. And we can change this through grassroots mobilization, through grassroots sensitization, by people speaking up, especially those in position of power. Those women in the cultural groups, in the Jangi groups, in the churches, in the choirs, in the CWA, CWF, the men's group, and so on. Please touch these topics. It is actually, to me, when we sit and we sometimes I have a problem with being too religious without being practical, because I think a lot of that, too much of that, has led us also to some problems because we tend not to question things that should be questioned. You know, let us touch these difficult topics. It's like most of us coming out here as Africans, we hear that, oh, in schools, our kids are being taught about, sexual health at a certain stage. Of course, we may differ as to when we think this topic should be introduced, at what age and so on. But at the end of the day, we realize, I mean, there's the culture shock because we never had it. A lot of us would have just gone and, surprise, you have your menses and your mom never really prepared you for this. Unlike here, now I'm sure our mothers, even, those of us who moved out here, we are doing things differently. So what I'm trying to say is there are some good things we can pick up and there are some bad things we can drop. I cannot condemn our entire tradition. No, that's wrong. But I am saying that what is wrong, and let us look at the issues instead of looking at the messenger of the issue. Don't say, "Oh, she's saying that yes because she's gone to school. That's why she's not married, or that's why she's this or that." That is blackmail because you wouldn't like your mother to be treated like that. You wouldn't like your daughter to be treated like that. So that woman beside you is somebody's mother, somebody's daughter. So we have to stand up. We need to be activists. We need to break the chains because it is a big one to do. And we need to use formal and informal methods. And these are when we meet in gatherings, let us address these issues. A man might just think that what I'm doing is right. But if he goes to maybe, a men's conference or a seminar or whatever, and somebody is actually saying, no, hey, you can address this differently. That might be a way of, a starting point for him to think, oh, look, what I'm doing is wrong. And then we have all these forces, these movements coming together from all different, echelons or channels, and that pushing for this change in the laws, and eventually hoping that people will have to respect them, if not brought to
Wow.
books.
Thank you so much. And it will not be right for us to end this subject without just tailoring it down to what is happening with our IDPs and
Yeah,
refugees. We know we are at war, and so we have women and girls that are IDPs and refugees that may be more at risk to what we just
yeah,
discussed, especially those who do not have any support system, anybody looking out for them. We have our young girls that are in La République du Cameroon as servants just to be able to get means to have food on the table. They are being exploited. They are really going through all this, raping, being battered, and all the like. We have our refugees that are also in a foreign land and are being exploited. So all this violence, which really increases when there's a war, we really need to be able to understand that we are really affecting generation of people to come, because they are the future. Our young children, they are the future. If they have a battered life and they don't know what is right and wrong, this culture may continue in their own as they become adults. So we use this opportunity to just tell our IDPs and refugees that just be careful, try to be in safe environments, and don't be afraid to report something that has happened to you. There's going to be a voice that somebody that will listen to you. There are authorities that are human, that will be able to listen to you. Don't hold back because you're afraid. And that's what I want to end this topic with, as we move on to. You want to say something about that, Dr. Yeah?
Yes. Thank you so much, Mape. The mother of Ambazonia, of course, you have to think about your children, your girls. And that's another subset that is really, really at risk, by virtue of war, being in a helpless situation. I think you mentioned one thing I want us to really take as take home message. In fact, I hate the word victim, really. The survivors of these crimes should speak up. Speak up. Don't be ashamed. It is your story. You didn't ask for it. Some people feel judged. They feel they're going to be judged by the society because we tend to say, "Oh, but what happened? Oh, she must have been this. She must have been mouthy. She must have been usually the strong head and all those things." No, when you're dealing with a violent person, never take the blame. The problem is not you. The problem is the violent person, because there are ways, even if you disagree on things, there are ways you can channel, you can communicate to resolve issues. It is never validated because I did something that you didn't like, and that's reason for you to smack me. So never reduce yourself to that. It doesn't matter who is telling you that, whether it is your priest or your, I don't know, your Njangi group or whatever. Of course, the society is going to judge you, but you need to stand up and report it. The first thing is speak up. Say it. The moment you say it, you realize that there are 3 out of 5 women who are in your same situation. They just didn't have the courage to do that. And Mape mentioned that the theme this time around is unite. I think going forward, it says unite. You are not alone. You're not alone, because that's always the fear. I can say that from a personal experience. You're thinking, what are people going to think? What is really going on? Like, what did she do? Or why me? And you have all this, self doubt, and maybe even feeling guilty for something you shouldn't. But the moment you speak up, you're going to have company right there, and you realize that you've actually liberated so many people, some who could have even pushed themselves to suicide. This has
Yeah,
led to people actually committing suicide because they're
absolutely.
they're stuck. They are afraid of, what will happen if I say it. Am I going to be accepted? Will people say, "Oh, you were wrong, you were not wrong, you were the liar, all those things go in your head." But you have to think about this. You were born, as an individual with a purpose, So your
Yeah.
life cannot be cut short because of a relationship. So think about it. So the most important thing is to speak up. Speak up, whether you start with your family, with your friends, but make sure you tell somebody, because that might just be your last day of being alive. Yes, it's happened. People have just been smacked and that's it, and they die. It still happens. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that fantastic advice. Thank you so much. So we'll move on to the next topic, which is World Children's Day. We're discussing this today because it happened this past Sunday. November 20th was World Children's Day. And again, just a brief history. Why do they even have a World Children's Day? I'm just going to read something quickly. November 20th is an important date. I'm getting a distraction here on my phone. Bear with me. All right. November 20th is an important date as it is the date in 1959 when the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Declaration of the Rights of the Child. It is also the date in 1989, that's 30 years later, when the United General Assembly adopted the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Since 1990, World Children's Day also marks the anniversary of the date that the United Nations General Assembly adopted both the Declaration and Convention on Children's Rights. So that is just a brief history of what we're talking about, World Children's Day. That happened May 20th. Incidentally, I had the opportunity to have a Zoom meeting with some children on the ground, in ground one.
Wow,
And it was really a pleasure meeting with those kids. And
that's nice.
see the hope in their eyes and the excitement to speak with me. And I just want to say that if anybody that was part of it is listening, I thank you all, and we'll have to make more of this happen. But Dr. Yeah, there's certain things that we want to talk about this date, although it's past. I know we grew up as children, and we were just children. As a child, you had no voice, right? Everything that your father says or
Yeah.
your parents goes, you had no voice. But I'm going to surprise you by just reading a few things, and you can comment,
Okay.
because the importance of this day really is for parents and teachers to educate kids about their rights. Do you believe that? This day is for
Hmm.
that's 20th of November. What happened in schools, and kids were being educated about their rights. And I'm going to just highlight certain things that is abbreviated. Number one, it has, because they had this convention on the rights of children. It had about for the 54 points. So we'll go through it
Oh,
quickly so that we don't take a lot of time. It's abbreviated, but we'll go through it quickly. It says, number one, definition of a child. So who is a child? A child is any person under 18 years old. Number two, no discrimination. So Dr. Yaya, it says no discrimination. All children have these rights, no matter who they are, where they live, what language they speak, whether you're a boy or a girl, whether you have a disability or not, whether your parent is rich or not, whether whether you have families or no family, no child should be treated unfairly for any reason. So that's very important. I don't really want to talk about that before I move on because it's so general.
I know.
Or do you want me to just read
Okay.
most of it and then you can comment?
You say there are 54.
Well, they are very
That's
brief though, so they don't really.
okay.
So
I think
in brief,
we're
so that
raising awareness. Let's just
you were
hear
raising
them,
an awareness. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that first one was no discrimination. Number three, best interest of the child. So meaning that when adults make decision, they have to do it in the best interest of the child. Number four, making rights real. So the governments in those countries have to make sure that the child uh, um, is giving all those information, which is what we are doing right now. So they're making the rights real. And number five, family guidance as children develop. So this is important. Some of them we can talk about. Number five,
Yes, I think
government
so.
should
Yeah.
let families and communities guide their children so that as they grow up, they learn to use their rights in the best way. The more children grow, the less guidance they will need. Number six, life, survival, and development. Okay, this is a very important. Every child has the right to be alive. Government must make sure that children survive and develop in the best possible way. Um, so, any comment on any of this before I just read some more? Because
Yeah,
that's
I
basically
think
what it
point
is.
three. Point 3 and 5, we should, or parents should, or, I don't know, parents or government should always work in the best interest of their child. And this can be very contextual.
Yeah.
There can be cultural divergence, because that definition, the best interest of a child, can mean different things in different societies. But I think the long and short is, again, we're going back. What we're doing here is, let's talk about things that we hardly talked about, the things that we didn't even know existed, because with all due respect, the parents want the best for their children, and they think, or at least they believe, that what they're doing is the best for their children. But sometimes this is just what they've grown knowing, what they've picked up, again, just like we talked with the other issues. So bringing this to light, I think even talking about this makes people to stop and think and say, hey, okay, good. In as much as I am the biological child, it doesn't mean I can just do anything as if this is my property. You brought this child to the world, yes. But when you've heard these things, maybe it makes you think. When, for example, another thing, again, that's a long topic, is forced marriage. Children or young girls. Again, I'm going
Yeah.
back to the old topic, but again, they are children because they're under 18. Uh, being forced into marriages that they are not even ready. Like, they have no say. But this comes from a cultural or maybe religious background. And so the parent thinks that I'm doing the best for the child. Of course, marriage is good. Of course, the family unit is very important. That's the basic unit of a stable community. But people have to get into this union knowing, or at least making that decision themselves, that they want to. So, yeah, it's a difficult one. But once we've heard these things, I think it makes us think, and we can go through, our consciences and think again. Am I really doing good by my child? You have other families, not even about the age. Somebody will say, oh, because this family is a prominent family or is a rich one, I like you to get married to this, and you start to force your child, into something that they don't want. So that point of parents acting in the best interest of their child is really a conscience call. We can't define what that means, but the question a parent should be asking yourself: am I doing this for me, or am I doing this for the interest of my child? Difficult one, but yeah, we
Yes.
must confront them.
Yes, Dr. Yeah. Okay, let me just quickly read some highlights, and then we can focus on some key ones that are maybe problem in our own society. Because I think you and I talked about it briefly, and you said that, well, you don't want that strong-haired child who will think that they know more than the parent. But let me just read some.
Exactly.
Yeah, so quickly, uh, uh, we already went as far as okay, keeping families together. That was number
Number
9. Number
7.
10, number 7, okay, name and nationality. Number 8, identity. Every child has to have an identity. Number 9, keeping families together. Number 10, contact with parents across countries. So these are for children that are separated because of one reason or the another. Number 11, protection from kidnapping. Number 12, respect for child's view. Okay, we'll come back to this one, respect for children's view. We'll come back to that one. Let me just put a mark there, because that may be something that is different
Yeah.
in Africa or in our society. And number 13,
Yeah.
13, sharing thoughts freely. That's also something that we can talk about. Number 14, freedom of thought and religion. Number 15, setting up for joining groups. 16, protection of privacy. Okay. Number 17, number 17, access to information. Number 18, responsibility of parents. Very important, responsibility of parents. Number 19, protection from violence. We just talked about violence against children and women. So let me just read 16 quickly. Every child has the right, is that the right one?
Number 16. You
Oh,
want number
number
16?
19. Number 19. Government
Okay.
must protect children from violence, abuse, and being neglected by anyone who looks after them. So we just came from talking about violence against women and children. So one of this convention on the rights of children is even stating, this is a UN thing, that governments must protect children from violence,
Yeah.
abuse, and being neglected by anyone who looks after them. Very important. Okay, number 20, children without family. Number 21, children who are adopted. Number 22, refugee children. So refugee children, let me read that quickly. Children who move from their home country to another country as refugees because it was not safe for them to stay there should get help and protection and have the same rights as children born in that country. So our children that are refugees in neighboring Nigeria or Ghana and all the like have to have rights like children in Ghana. Some of those things are probably easy to be done in the Western world, but maybe very difficult to accomplish in Africa. I will be honest. I will say that,
Yeah.
candidly. Okay, let me move on. So that was okay. Number 23, children with disability, they have special rights. Uh, and then number 4, health, water, food, and environment. Health, water, food, and environment. Children have the right to the best health care possible, clean water to drink, healthy food, and clean and safe environment to live in. All adults and children should have information about how to stay safe and healthy. Number 25, review of children's placement. Number 26, social and economic health. 27, food, clothing, and safe home. Number 28, access to education. When I had Professor Epote a couple of weeks ago, she highlighted this number 28, which basically
Okay.
says every child has the right to an education. Primary education should be free. Secondary and higher education should be available to every child. Children should be encouraged to go to school to the highest level possible. Discipline in school should respect children's rights and never discipline in schools should respect children's rights and never use violence. So I just highlighted that because we talked about it during our education
Mm-hmm.
session. Number 29, arms of education. Number 30, minority culture, language, and religion. Number 21, rest, play, culture, and arts. So number 31,
What was that number 31?
rest, play,
Rest.
culture, and arts. Rest. So every child has the right to rest, to relax,
I
to
see.
play, and to take part in cultural and creative activities. This is so
Yeah.
great. Really, this is how kids evolve to be able to be
Creative.
creative in the future. Like, so
Yeah.
in the United States, some of those kids that are inventors, they had this possibility because they had the right to play, to be creative. Creativity is so important that we should really encourage it in our kids. And the Ambazonia we are fighting for really has to highlight this number 31. I think it's so important. Uh,
Yeah.
Number 32, protection from harmful work. Number 33, protection from harmful drugs, protection from sexual abuse. Number 34, let's talk about that. 34, the government should protect children from sexual exploitation, being taken advantage of, and sexual abuse, including by people forcing children to have sex for money or for making sexual pictures or films of them. So we just went through that a few minutes ago. Number 35, prevention of sale and trafficking. 36, exploitation, protection from exploitation. 36, children have the right to be protected from all kinds of exploitation, being taken advantage of, even if these are not specifically mentioned in the convention. 37, children in detention, protection in war. Number 38, protection in war. Okay. Children have the right to be protected during war. No child under 15 can join the army or be part of the war. And we know that this our war between ourselves and La Republique to come under La Republique force on us. They've taken the young kids and put them in La Republique army. We've seen pictures of that. These
Mm-hmm.
are children that are been forced to pick up the weapon and fight us. Um, I hope you're taking some notes. So when I finish here, I'll make you talk about most
I
of it.
am. So I'm overflowed. I'm really happy that, I mean, it's very educational. I
Yes.
never knew that,
Yeah, they had all this
they go into such
convention. Okay.
detail.
Okay, number 30, 39, recovery and reintegration. Number 40, children who break the law. Okay, children who break the law. We should not be talking about only things that are good. Children
Good, yeah.
accused of breaking the law have the right to legal help and fair treatment. There should be lots of solutions to help these children become good members of the communities. Prison
Yeah.
should only be the last choice. That is something we should absolutely practice in our Ambazonia we're
What should be
fighting
the
for.
last choice?
Prison should be the only
Oh,
last
prison.
choice.
Oh, yeah,
Prison.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 41, best law for children applies. Number 42, everyone must know children's rights. So everyone must know children's rights. So we are telling you all, Ambazonians watching, I know we're at war, but our children have rights and you need to know these rights also. Um, and number 41, if the laws of a country protects children's rights better than this, then the laws of the countries are better. So if a country has laws that are more favorable for the children than the one that the UN declared, then go with the one that is for the children. Okay, everything else now is in general. So let's talk about some of the highlights, Dr. Ya, that I mentioned, because I like you to talk about these things. We talk about uh, respect for children's view. Do you want to comment on that?
Yes. Yes. I like that. Again, these are ground rules, and
Mhm.
they're set globally. Like we know, in everything in life, there are exceptions, or there's how far you can stretch. Let me put it that way. And you also sometimes take a global solution or proposal, and then you adapt it to your local solution. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Mhm.
There are some points that are well intended, but they can be so elastic that it can stretch to anything. Particularly this one on the child having the freedom to express themselves. Of
Mhm.
course, that is very, very important. I would say I was kind of blessed to have grown up in a home where we were expected to speak up. We're actually encouraged to speak up. But that doesn't mean that you have to that shouldn't be translated to disrespect, so to
Yes.
say. But I remember once I asked my father a tough question, and in fact, he didn't do any, he didn't say anything, but I felt bad because I know that typically a child, my friends wouldn't ask that to their dad, and because I had so much love for him, I felt like I let him down. But really, I think it was his style. Like he understood that I was probably going through my own thoughts, but never really said, "How could you have asked me such a thing?" It's something that could have questioned his. Um, how do I put it? But anyway, I think the long and short is that we just like we talk about women or girls being in relationships and not having a say, or not feeling that they have to be controlled on everything. I mean, even to their opinions. It starts by raising a child that is confident. It starts by you raising a child and making them understand that it is okay for you to tell me how you feel. And now, if I'm getting on the other side, if there are excesses, this is the role of the parent who now
Mhm.
guides me by saying, "Hey, I know you think this, you feel this, but look at it this way. This is, you put me on the right path and give me reasons why you think that way." It is good for a child to, I know it's hard work, and I'm not saying that all the time you have to negotiate. What do you say? The word is running away. I'm not completely against children being smart, because my mom had to
Mhm.
do that to get me on,
Mhm.
straight a little bit. But we're talking about these extremes where a child has to be hurt with wounds, or people create wounds on their kids' bodies, because of hair. When you've exceeded the limit. It's important for us to bring up our kids, giving them that freedom to express themselves, and then coming in as parents to guide their thoughts or guide their thinking processes, and you can only pray to God that they reason with you, because sometimes you do the best as a parent and things turn the way they turn. But the opposite is not to have a child who is only being scolded, and talked down. We must have this culture, develop the culture of having a child speak, so that even when they find themselves in difficult situations in teenage, as we have all the temptations, particularly young girls, facing the issue of getting involved in sexual relationships or not. If you haven't, created that opportunity to talk with your children or to be open with them, they might not have somewhere to run to ask these dark questions, or dealing with drugs or any of these kind of things. So, yeah,
Yeah.
whether the answer is not written in any book, but I
Yeah.
think open communication is good. Yeah.
Wow, you made so many good points, Dr. Yaya. So many good points. Open communication is good. You're right that we have different family dynamics, and so the way children react to their parents is really different based on how the parents give them the opportunity. But this is what we are educating ourselves that
Yeah.
um, I remember when I was growing up. Although my father, I would say anything to my father, but we had that culture where when we're doing something, our father is coming, we all run away. That type of fear.
Oh
You're so
yes,
much
we also
afraid
did.
that, yeah, you don't want them to find you doing something. Unlike this environment that I'm growing in, and then as the years went by, I realized that when I went to visit my younger siblings or even the grandkids that were there, they were more free. They were freer with my
Yep.
father than I was when I was growing. Whether it was
Yeah.
because with the years he had to mellow down, or because they just had more rights and they felt
Yeah.
free to discuss anything, I don't know what the situation is.
Who are you?
But I also came across this story recently that I was watching, and it really applies to our families. That this, what I want to say, is very important. This mother was asking the son, if you had to choose what you want to do, what you would you be like when you go to school to be a what? Uh, the child said, doctor, just like asking a question. The mother said, no, what do you really want to do? He said, lawyer. I said, no, forget about me. What do you really want to do? The child opened up and said, I would go to New York where they have this academy for dance, and I will study dance. The mother looked at him. I'm going to pay you money to go and learn how to dance? Are you out of your mind? So the point I'm trying to make here is that there are some
Yeah.
kids that have passion for certain things, but we as African parents, we've already focused on just some two particular topics: lawyer, doctor, engineer, things like that. We don't give these kids the opportunity to do what they can excel in and be the best at, and survive and thrive in those fields. So this also is part of this world days for world. No, let your child be free to share things with you, share their opinion, and you guide them accordingly. I just had to put that short story there to as we conclude this topic, because we have to talk about referendum and we have to end the show soon. So if you have any other topic thing to mention about this child, based on what I just said, you can say it now before we move to the next.
Yes. No, I thought that's a very good example, because uh, we are all victims in one way or the other. Oh, bless him. I always give personal examples. I have a younger brother. He is so talented. Like, since he was a kid, he was very different. He could dance even when he couldn't speak, but he could mumble and sing. Michael Jackson, or you name it. So when he was growing up, he had his music book, so he was doing his songs and writing those things. And guess what? Because my sister and I mean, we have like a 2 year gap. Our dad always used to study. He used to read at night. So to prove that we are good kids, we'll wake up at night to read with him. Keep him company. So he loved these good kids, of course. The typical African father. The child goes to school, does well in school, and all of that. And so we'll take my brother's music stuff, and we come and show him, and sometimes we even hide it. And this poor kid, when he will come looking for his book, and sometimes he'll write and it's not so, not really clear English. He just writes what he oh my God, I will hide it. And he was so hurt. But we didn't think, we thought we were helping
Yeah.
him in the sense that we wanted him to concentrate on, the formal education. But today I know better. And God knows if he was in a society that gave him the opportunity to do what he can do best because he is truly gifted, he would have been somewhere else. So it is really important to be tickled, by listening to these things, and then you go through yourself and say, "Oh, have I been a good parent, a good sister, a good friend?" But this is the teaching we're teaching ourselves. And
Yeah.
going again to this whole thing of the doctor, lawyer syndrome, engineer syndrome, I think that's very common in so-called third world countries, or countries where the economic system is not stable. If you look at India, in every typical Indian family, you have a doctor, you have a lawyer, you have an accountant, an engineer, and you name it. While all these fields are important, we also need every other. We need the technical area. We need the entrepreneur ship area. I'm sure. I don't know if Prof. Epotet talked about this, but this is something that I think in Ambazonia we should encourage, and we should make everybody feel proud of themselves. The
Yes.
reason why I feel that we tend to think that people who do not follow the mainstream underperformers is, well, so it's the misconception we grew in. And
Yeah.
also, I don't blame the parents too much, because probably a parent will be thinking, okay, if my child grew up and became a teacher, a lawyer, they'll earn a salary. But if they grow up to become a musician at the time, um, we don't even know how these people are paid, how they can, take care of themselves. So the whole uh, that mentality was a reflection of the society in which we lived. Unlike here, where you see sportlers, if that's a word, or people get into music arts, performing arts and theater, you see that they can make a living out of it, and they can actually influence their society through music and or through arts. But in our society, you're actually taken as a failure. In fact, when I look at, I don't know if you know that road going up to Station Hill, where you had some arts kind of thing, where one guy used to sit on that road and is selling those things. We will come and he says it's 200, and we'll say, "Pa, give it for 100." He says, "Okay, take 100." You say, "Pa, give it for 50." Finally, you end up buying that thing for, how can such a person even make a living? Because
Right.
we have a society, an unfair society, that doesn't actually we
Appreciate.
don't have equity, so yeah, we pray that Bazonia is going to recognize that we need all walks of life,
Yeah.
because even the engineer or the doctor needs a mechanic to fix their car. They need a plumber to fix their kitchen or their toilet. So we have to respect every work and actually encourage all. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of these things that engineers do comes from designs from artists. So they are all connected. So we
Yeah.
should really encourage our kids to really excel in the field that they feel comfortable and thrive with. So we end this topic by just highlighting those number 12 and 3 again, where it says children have the right to give their opinions freely on issues that affect them. Adults should listen and take children seriously. Number 13 says children have the right to share freely with others what they learn, think, and feel by talking, drawing, writing, or in any way, other way, unless it harms other people. So we were going to move on to the referendum topic because we have to end this show in a few minutes. And just to say that we were fighting for an Ambazonia where children's rights will be recognized, where they will be given the opportunity to thrive. And we know, again, we also remember that we are at war, and things are not going the way they should go with our children. Most of our children are not in school, those in the rural areas, because of what has happened. So we will keep them in prayers and continue this fight till we get to Boya. Now we're going to go to that topic that has to do with referendum. And because we will be ending this topic in a few minutes. And I wanted to start that, Dr. Yaya, by just, and I was not ready for this yet, but I want to read a tweet, that tweet that, who was it? Thibaut Nash recently mentioned, and that's why we probably decided to talk about it. If I can find it. Here we go. So, not too long ago, Thibaut Nash tweeted about referendum. Where the heck are you? All right. This was a few days ago. This was 3 days ago. He said that truth, Southern Cameroon, Ambazonia community split between federalists and independence advocates. But everyone should be willing to support a demand for an internationally supervised referendum on the ground to let the people decide their future, not the diaspora. That was the tweet that he put on 2 days ago. And before that, this guy called Chris J. Roberts, who wrote an article about the 10 points to solve the Anglophone problem, like he calls it, also had opined that a federation will be the better route to take. So, Dr. Ya, I'll give the floor to you if you want to talk on this topic on referendum.
What's it? I haven't done my homework. Yes, I'm not a historian, so permit me if I have lapses in understanding. I think I'm part of that generation who was, of course, like most of us, never really taught our history. So these 5 years of our struggle has been our history class, and we're still learning. And
Right.
I must agree, it's complex sometimes to understand. But the fact is that we were two entities that came, agreed, or that came into an agreement that was never really completed, to become, to form a federation, and the terms of reference were never ever finally concluded, and we never had any treaty. What do you call this? Union treaty? Treaty.
Yeah, Treaty of Union.
What's the word?
Same thing.
Treaty of Union. Anyway, what is a referendum? We had it in the past. And to me, when I look at what happened, the question was, at the time before we came into this kind of faulty union with La République du Cameroun, we were a trusteeship, if I understand, of the UN. And in 1960, was it 1960 or 1961, when Mape, you know better, we usually have the details, the statistics better, when most African countries were gaining their independence, La République gained independence on the 1st of January in 1960. And for Ambazonia, or the southern British, southern Cameroons, the decision was made for us to gain our independence on the 1st. So that decision was passed. Is this the, what is that resolution? Resolution, I don't know.
1608.
Exactly, sorry. So now, why did we even have a referendum? That's the first thing. Because according to the UN, this I had to kind of teach myself, but please permit me if I'm wrong. The trusteeship convention, there was some kind of understanding. needed to be independent if they can self-govern, if they can confirm, if they can prove that they can govern themselves, then they could become independent or they could gain their independence. And at the time, we had a government. We've been self-governing ourselves since 1954, I think, and then we went into a full-fledged government led by PM Endeli in 1957. So therefore, we met that criteria that we were a governing, we could govern ourselves. We were self-governing. So why then did we need a referendum, which we already fulfilled the criteria? So first of all, to me, that plebiscite or referendum was a fraud. It was faulty, and that is because the whole process of ending the colonization process, for some reason, was played with, was manipulated. Whether it was out of friendship between the colonial powers, or Britain truly thought that Ambazonia was not was still so much of a baby, but we were governing, we were self-governing, and that was the criteria, and we met that criteria. So what was the point of having a referendum? And then the question becomes, La République or the other countries that had their independence, did they have a referendum before having independence? The question is no. So why is the British Southern Cameroons special? Why do we need a referendum? And by the way, with the faulty referendum they held, or the plebiscite, what questions did they have? What were the options? And who actually decides that a people should have a referendum? Is it an outsider or somebody's opinion? Is it the leadership of the people? Or is it when you have parties, warring parties that are trying to seek some kind of an understanding, and at some point they say, okay, we're going to do this, but let's see where even, what the people want. Again, I'm not a specialist in public relations and things like that, but someone could help educate us. My question is, why was British Southern Cameroons, why did we have to go through a referendum before gaining independence? And the
Yeah.
options that we put there, just like when we have any, Mape, you can interject anytime.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so
Sorry. Go ahead.
and the options there were independence by joining. Why that?
Yeah.
Why that clause when we were already a self-governing entity?
Yeah.
And we were given two options to join, the word bad and worse, and we were not given the option of being our own. So I'm not sure, it didn't work then. It was faulty, and why do we need to repeat it now? And indirectly we have had some. Maybe you want to add,
Yeah.
we're talking about.
Sorry, Dr. Yeah. So thank you so much
Yeah.
for taking us back to our history, how we started as a nation, Southern Cameroons, and taking us back to that vote, that plebiscite vote, where we were given the choice to join what A or B. And I was recently talking to somebody who is from Kenya about our problem, and he made something very clear to me that the fact that that choice was given, and I think we've already talked about it. Some our historians, our now lawyers in the struggle have already mentioned this. That the reason they would have come up with something like that is because they already knew the treasure that we had in our land, the wealth in our land. So they were already planning to make sure that one of the big fives that are in the United Nations benefit from it. The big five they've always been there: France, United States, Britain, Germany, and Russia.
Russia.
So it was already a plan for one of them to benefit from it. Uh, Before the show started, the director was playing this show about this guy talking about the partition of Africa, and the only reason is to divide us so that we're so divided that they can exploit us. So that was another way of making sure that they have access to our wealth, our minerals, our resources, our oil. And then let's go more now to this recent reason why Thibault Nash will come up with such a suggestion as other people have been suggesting. And there was another referendum, Dr. Yaya, that the was under uh, President
Kadmatini.
the we and yes referendum, where they were asking us if we should when they had to change from federation
The
to
Federal Republic to the United Republic.
yes, when they changed from
Okay.
federal to united. That referendum was the one that they came up, I think it was 1972. It was a we and no,
Yes.
I mean we and yes, where everybody was really voting for the same thing.
So
So
one
whether you
option.
think that you're really voting against or you're really voting for. And then of course, that was them trying to exploit us and take advantage of our not understanding the language. And so that they succeeded. But then let's go now really to this topic. There is a war. You already said it, Dr. Yaya, there's no union uh, treaty between the two nations. Why do they think that a referendum will be the solution? For me, I don't even think that it should come up, because if we've already restored our nation, Dr. Ya, if we've already on that October 1st, 2017, when the former President Siseko Ayutabe restored our nation, that we are the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, that means that we have agreed. Let me even go back. On the 22nd of September
Yeah.
2017, when people came out with plans all over the territory, all over, that was already a referendum right there. They are saying that we are going back to what we were. We don't want
Exactly.
anything to do with this country. So the people already spoke, and the people that really mattered spoke. Because now we don't want people that do not matter to speak. So the people that this really involves spoke on that 22nd September 2017. That we are going back. We've already tried this. It didn't work. We want a land. And this thing that they've imposed ghost town every Monday is a symbol that we are Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians. And then October 1st, President Sasako declared our restored nation. Why will a nation that is restored as a Southern Cameroonian, Ambazonia, want to do a referendum? You know, even given to the fact that
Exactly.
people like Bonash already had, I'm sorry, late Cardinal Tumi already
To
had
me.
a survey that said that Southern Cameroonians want their independence. They want to be self-governing. And I also hate to quote Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation. They also said that they had a survey that said that Southern Cameroonians prefer to be autonomous. They want to be an independent nation. So with all this in the background, why is this guy suggesting referendum? you know, because
Yes.
yeah, go ahead, Doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mape. And if they want a referendum, we've had a series of them, and the most resounding one is what you mentioned, as on the 22nd of September. This was just overwhelming because we had all age groups out there, from babies to a 97-year-old grandmother, marching peacefully and declaring, our independence. So, or restoration of our independence. What more do you want? The crowd
Mhm.
spoke for themselves. Even dogs were marching that day. I still remember the picture of a dog. That was so wonderful. And you can't beat that. And talking about, you mentioned again that civil disobedience, that complete detachment of governance. Of course, the military, artillery, and all of that of La Republique, which is a 60-year-old plus standing trained military, they're still invading our territory, but they know that the people themselves on that land do not want them. The colonial administrators are isolated because if not for the force, their forceful presence, they know that they wouldn't survive being in Ambazonia. So that is a referendum. The people know what they want. I even remembered recently talking about schools, which is, of course, a sensitive topic to every parent. We just read the rights of a child. A child has the right to education. So every parent would generally think, "Oh, my child is staying at home." I understand it from an emotional perspective, definitely. Uh, but then we had the situation where mothers, I think in Bamenda, they wanted to send their kids to school. They wanted the children to go to school. But the colonial governor well, whatever. The colonial governor, or well, they tried to bring flags, La Republique flags, to give to the
Hmm.
children. Though the
Yes, I
mothers
saw that.
wanted their children to go to school, they refused taking those flags. So
I
what
saw
are
that.
these? What is the message? It is very
Yeah.
clear. It is very clear that the people know what they want. They are politicizing the school issue because, of course, every parent wants their child not to stay at home. But hopefully, we pray that these children are actually learning something useful and not risking their lives. So,
Yeah.
but they refuse the flag. So there are so many ways that people have said no to this occupation,
Hmm.
And again, Tibor Nash talking about, I mean, he has a right to his opinion. He's an individual, and he was there as the former vice whatever. I don't know. Of course, as a
Africa.
diplomat, he cannot talk much, but that's just his opinion. I don't think our freedom has nothing to do with this man. Our freedom has everything to do with what we want, how much we want it, how badly we want it, how forceful we tell the world that we want it. And that's all that we need to concentrate on. That is our referendum. We said so
Yes.
in 2020, the 22nd of September 2017. We keep doing that with the continuous resistance and the self defense till we are going to shift the occupier from our land. So please, let's not be. I know colonialism has embedded something so sad in us, the lack of self confidence. We always believe that what the white man says is
Hmm.
supreme, is superior.
Yeah.
No, your freedom does not and should not depend on what Tibonash says. He could be doing his consultancy or maybe looking for a future job, with all due respect, he's played his own role, but our freedom lies in our hands. Let us make ground zero hot and ungovernable so that these guys go packing. That's what it is. There is not a no, it's not an issue of papers or sitting and having fake Fumban conferences and all
Hmm.
these dubious attempts that we've had recently, which have all failed. So please, if we want this freedom so badly, it's not enough to say no, no referendum. The way we are saying no to the referendum is by making sure we're drafting, making sure we build our LGAs and all the structures of this interim government, and we make sure we keep ground zero hot. We make sure we expose all of those who are standing in our way to make this journey difficult. We call them different names. Some people say they don't like it. Doesn't matter. That's what they are until they change, and join the train to take us to Boya and quicken and shorten the suffering of our people.
Wow. That is a very, very good point to end this show on, Dr. Yeah. You've really concluded with what we should, the take home message. The take home message, as you clearly put, is that it doesn't matter what Tibonash says, it doesn't matter what other diplomats are saying. It matters what we want. And you put it so well. What we want, we will get if we put the right action in place. And I wanted to say thank you so much for
Hello?
being on the horizon today.
Hello,
And
Dr. Patience. Dr. Patience,
yes,
can you hear me?
we can hear you.
Okay, I'm calling to
Oh,
participate. Perhaps I should join in as you conclude.
oh.
Congratulations, it's been a wonderful show. The education for child abuse, I would also want to contribute on that. For the issue of women, I think I am non-tolerant to to African cultures that um, undermine some basic dignity of a woman. And I think that Africans should not be choosy when it comes to the cultures that they want to annihilate from their inheritance. Because why should you delete polygamy or the way Africans treat women pertaining to marriage and then keep a phone that disregard our virtues and values? And Guafo, before he died, was already greeting Shantambia with his hand. So I think there should be a revolutionary uh, mindset or energy that creeps into our traditions and cultures and delay a lot of things. I think that there should be a reform in whatever we call chiefdoms and condoms. Those things are an abuse. I give an example of when I was growing up. My stepmother is from Bui, Banso. We know the Banso people of people who have a lot of respect for their culture. But what they have today is not a phone. And because of this emotional attachment to customs and traditions, we have a people not wanting a phone that has abused them, abused and despised their secrecy and tradition. They don't want anybody to touch it because of that attachment. So you find out we cannot limit this discussion to Africans holding on tradition when it comes to how they have to treat women. If we as Africans, we're coming up today as Ambazonians, that we want to stand totally against bad cultures, the first thing is to eliminate offices like that of funds who are abusing our cultures and tradition. That's a discussion for another day. It's a debate. I know a person like Ochiba, because I believe he's a traditional man, will not agree with me that fondoms and chiefdoms should be deleted because they have messed us. In fact, they are the ones enslaving us right now. There are many of them. Just look at what the chiefs are doing even from Mamfe into Meme. Now let's hurry into the children's right. I think that laws against child abuse should be escalated.
Dr. Paddy, can I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
On the chiefs? Yeah,
Yes,
I think I get the pain, and that's what some of us go through, especially coming from Bowie County. But what I would add, what I would like to say is this: I don't think that we need to delete the structures. The structures in themselves are very good. This was our traditional form of governance before the white man came. Just like anything, I think there should be room for change. There should be room for progress, and these are the changes that we are vouching for. What was normal 50 years ago shouldn't be taken as normal today if we think that this is wrong.
Let me ask you a quick question. A phone like that on SOC, who has categorically, because it's supposed to be a phone of the people, that is who a phone is, meaning a leader of his people, but he's outrightly acting in contravention of the wishes of the people of SOC. He has chosen the colonizer against his own people. He is not even respecting the traditions of the Buil of SOC stricto sensu. And you have the people from SOC are foolishly, I'm unapologetic with this statement, are foolishly standing for him because they love tradition. Now they ignore the fact that the person that this man is supporting is killing their own people.
Yeah, there are two things there. You're very right. You're very right. But we're talking about the person. We're talking about this individual who doesn't even understand and doesn't cherish the position he actually holds. So I think I agree with you that the person in question who feels that position is the problem. It is not the presence or the existence of that position, because I think we should have our traditions. We have them all over. We have the queen, the royal families, but we should change what is no longer current, what is no longer profitable to the people. That's what that would be my approach, instead of just saying we should delete the fondoms. Anyway,
yes.
How do we handle a phone like this current phone? Well, so that we don't stretch that too much. Let me contribute on Fibonacci and the child abuse very briefly.
Okay.
Now, I agree. I watched a video. I think Ochiba Nelson shared that video. I had watched that video before. The child in the United States of America, because of the laws. For instance, my pastor had once preached. He was criticized. He says the laws in America that has to do with family setup is at least 70% the money. First of all, you now have our children are being taught in school that they can be man or a woman, and then they tell you it's their right. You have a child is having more right than the parent. I watched this little child. I wish I had the video to play. The child actually beating the mother, and the mother cannot do anything. And there is really no law to prosecute that child. And the mother is not giving any chance to discipline the child. The child was beating the mother on camera. We've had a situation like that. So I agree with the fact that abuse of a child should be voted into law. But this whole modern day concept of children's right has to be revised. It is way below even correctness, where a child, because children were not given to us by the law, it was given by God. And it is a gift of trust. When God gives to you a trust, for instance, to have a child, it's because God entrusts the child for you to raise the child. But when a law makes it in such a way that a child cannot be raised by the parent, it becomes a problem.
Let me say something. Let me say something because we're about to end. The only reason these rules came about were because they felt that children were being abused. Let's think about one thing. If you have a home where you raise the child in a loving manner, these rules do not apply, because when you raise a child in a loving manner, that child will respect you, and the child will never say that, oh, it's my right to do this or my right to do that. So these laws are really there to protect those kids that are in homes that are being abused, so that there are consequences when these kids are being abused by adults or parents. But what you're saying is right. There are some excesses where a child will say, oh, I know my rights. If I want to do this, I can do that. But it all goes in the general fact that maybe when you will bring up that child, you may have overlooked certain things, because there's no way that my daughter, the way I raised my daughter, will ever stand and tell me, "Mommy, that's my right. I'm going to do this."
Yeah,
because I raised her to
let
do
me
that.
just come in there very quickly. Why am I saying so is because you look at the consequences of laws, and then you question them, and then you think that and the laws that we have now, particularly in the United States of America, pertaining to children's right, would have to be revised. Why? Because it has affected even their curriculum in school. What they are taught in school, for us as people in our community, we do not think that a child should be taught that they can now love, they can marry a man. If they're a man, they can marry a woman. And then you cannot even question that, because they will tell you it is their right. We think that we as parents can control the education of what the child should learn. Because from my Christian perspective, it is wrong for a parent not to allow. The Bible says that you have to train a child the way the child should go. The child doesn't come and start telling the parent how they want to go. It doesn't. Am I saying that you don't develop the capacities or the qualities of the child? That's not what I'm saying. We leave that on another end, because this is an extensive debate. Let me run very quickly and comment on the Fibonacci public utterance. Fibonacci public utterance, I would say, is an apology, because Fibonacci is not ignorant. I like what Dr. Yaya said. He's just who he is. He can say, he can swim. But in diplomacy, you do not also want to ignore what a stakeholder, he's a potential stakeholder, what he can say. He can possibly talk with the American State House or the White House. If America, the way America works, when they send you as a special envoy to a region, either as a Peace Corps, an ambassador, or whatever, or a diplomat, America will never vote policies in a particular region without consulting stakeholders like Fibonacci. So when I listen to some people trying to mellow down his statements without us coming categorically towards it, I feel like they are very short-sighted. Why? Because America will not make any decision about the Cameroons without consulting the ambassador in Cameroon, without consulting Fibonacci, without consulting American missionaries that are on the ground, without consulting every person that America has sent, either through an NGO or like a church or by the government. We have to know that whatever approach we're doing with the State Department, with our diplomacy, I think from a basic understanding in the way the American system works, I would advise that we either have discussion, we must be proactive to approach certain people when they make certain things, because there are chances, even though some believe that Tibo Nas has just retired, he cannot become an official consultant, which is true according to American law. But Cameroon does not respect law when they want to lobby people. Cameroon can possibly, because Tibo Nach has made statements that if you compare the statement he just made, you know there's a twist somewhere. And there should be something. So our diplomats and whoever is in charge, I'm saying this to the interim government particularly, has got to pay into consideration that politics, they are not permanent friends, but there's a permanent interest. When you find out that your interest is being jeopardized, either by a public statement or by a policy statement, then you do not mellow down by undermining the capacity of that person, but proactively approach the person, either by re-educating the person or lobbying the person to change their narrative. Because a public, Cameroon knows that public statements and declarations are important, and they don't take that lightly. Thank you. I hope I didn't take too much of your time.
Thank you so much,
Really?
Heidi. Go ahead, go ahead, Dr. Yaya. You wanted to make some few comments.
Yeah, I'm not. The two things that really hit me. Yeah, I think I get what you're saying about, how far do we stretch with this freedom, and it is the same question in almost every work of every area of our lives, even in our quest for freedom. And when we talk about democracy, you hear people say, yeah, freedom of speech. So does that mean I can just stand and insult my mother because that's freedom of speech? So there are, like what Mape was saying, the first thing we want to recognize is the intention of the creation, first of all, of these is because there was an excessive bad behavior that needed some rules in place. So now remember, and these laws are not written on stone. And that's why we keep having reforms with whatever constitutions or laws that have been made in the past. And again, talking about Ambazonia, which again it has, we're coming from a different context in terms of tradition and culture. It doesn't mean that we have to adopt every line that was suggested. This is just an awareness raising. It is a global solution. I think everybody now or every nation has to sit and have these conversations, and they have to be on a constant basis. And of course, making for reforms wherever we thought that there was an open space that gave room for excesses or misinterpretations or overinterpretations. So I think the idea of, first of all, having a check, putting that check in place is a good thing. Now, whether that is up to date with where we want our society to be is subject to constant discussion and reformation, I would say. And then talking about Tibo Nash and how the diplomatic world works. Of course, you're right. We're not talking here in the capacity of the interim government. Remember, even though we are members of the government, my analysis is from a perspective from an individual, and encouraging my fellow comrades. Of course, the president is going to handle this differently because he knows best how this business runs. So it is not to say that his statement is completely useless. Of course, he is a voice to reckon with. But even if America has to consult with him or whoever or whatever missionaries, the amount of firepower, that fact doesn't change. The heat we give on the ground is going to determine, it's going to be the final determinant. Of course, they'll listen to their feedback, but if there is heat when it's on the ground, then it's going to make things move and not just their opinion. Thank you anyway. Thanks for your inputs. And
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Paddy, for your input. Thank you, Dr. Yaya. So let me you mentioned something, Dr. Yaya, about the president. The president has already come out and clearly stated that if you choose referendum, you're choosing your death. He has come out clearly and stated that referendum is not an option for us. And there are many reasons why. We already went through some of the reasons already, where we talked about that we've already declared that we are an independent nation. Why should we even think about referendum? But let's just, as we close this show, were to ask that What if that were even a possibility? Because referendum is basically a vote on a particular subject matter. What if that were a possibility? We already know that Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians only, will not be the people participating in this exercise. That is clear because go back to our land and see who is inhabiting our lands right now. A lot of La Republic citizens are in our territory. So, how will you guarantee that those who are taking part in this vote are purely Southern Cameroonians? And when I say Southern Cameroonians, they are purely people whose great grandparents lived in those areas that they call Southwest, Northwest in their own nomenclature. Great grandparents live there, where you can go there and find your great grandparents' graveyard where he was buried, you know. Because you know that most of these foreigners, when they pass on, they go get buried in their land. Most Bamileke people that have lived in the area, when they pass on, they go get buried in their territory. They don't get buried in our land. So how will you guarantee that those who will be taking part? I remember when this struggle started, fight started, a lot of our people's IDs were confiscated, and who knows what has happened to those IDs, what they've done, what the changes have happened. So we're already starting in a place where uh, we are bound to lose. We are bound to lose. But why should we even go there? We've already declared with all the surveys that we've had in the past. To me, I hear Tapo Ivo also had a survey. I don't even want to mention his name, and CDN. So there were 3 surveys that clearly stated that Southern Cameroonians want to retain what they had before, a nation where they were self-governing themselves, clearly have 100% independence. And if we stick to what Dr. Yaya said, that firepower, 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 show who owns the land, draft, it doesn't matter what the international community is saying. And it's so sad. Why would they be the one to determine our future? They have these rights for children's rights. Why we will not have a right ourselves? I'm just going back to the fact that they have rights to listen to the children. So how they are not? Why are they not listening to Southern Cameroonians who
Yeah.
already say they want ownership of their land? So we conclude today. Dr. Yeah, I'm going to have you just make your closing remark, then I'll say something, and then we'll end the show.
Yeah, with your permission, there's a breaking news. I don't know, it is yet unconfirmed. There's a breaking news, Dr. Patience. With your permission, yeah,
Please.
I just want to seize this opportunity to announce to those who are watching. I'm just seeing that on Facebook. We're yet to verify it. That ADF has just recently kidnapped 50 civilians, that's Ambazonians, definitely for their ransom. And it's unfortunate, and we are hoping that the people at home front will collaborate with the interim government to see how there can be a counter. So that's the news that's coming up from the home front.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Yeah, with your closing comment.
Yes, before I just wanted to add, you were trying to highlight how are we going to even carry out, let's assume that we were to do this. To me, I just see it as an opportunity to exercise some fraud as they're used to doing in the past, because there's no way in the context of war who is going to vote and how are they going to organize it. Is it going to be online? Is it going to be live voting? And what are the questions that we'll be having? What are the options? Is it we and yes, or is it, and who crafts these questions? Who has the legitimacy to ask or call for a referendum? And do you call for when you have 2 parties that are, at loggerheads? Do you organize a referendum when there's when both parties haven't even sat down to even start some kind of mediation, which is a third party in our situation being a decolonization process? The solution has to be a mediation that with the presence of a third party. So who then calls for this? What are the questions? How practical? What are the logistics? So it is all clear that this is an opportunity for fraud and confusion. so that they will use numbers and start to play on people's minds. Hey, the people have now voted for this and not that. So please, this is even out of the window. So I think
Yeah.
we are wiser than this. Our president has spoken. He has educated us. This question was just a teaser. It was a rhetoric question because when we shared the flyer, a lot of people were upset. They were like, why? No, no, no. Of course, we were not thinking that we're going for a referendum. We just wanted to use the opportunity to enlighten more people who may be confused, why this is absolutely not necessary. So to close, I just want to thank you, Mape, for the wonderful work you're doing for Ambazonia. Indeed, I lack words. Sometimes I'm like, how does she do this? You're here, you're there, you're on Twitter, you're keeping all these important dates, and you just keep moving. I just love your serenity. I love your energy. I wish I could be like you. Thank you for having me on this show. And again, you're my health coach. Thanks for that. Just a reminder, I now try to do my 30 minutes walk, even though now it's cold, not every day, but I try. Thanks to you. It was
Oh
really
my
a pleasure
goodness.
being on board. I was very nervous because, like I told you, I said, "Oh God, I haven't done any research on this. These are not my areas of expertise." But thank you. You're always supportive for sharing some material. So, thank you. It's a pleasure being with Ambazonia.
Well, thank you, Dr. Yaya. It's so difficult to have guests on our show, so I'm really thrilled that you're willing to be one of our guests on the horizon because you come with a lot of information and you set the tone and you let the people know exactly what the facts are. And I really appreciate all you've said about me. And also, it goes both ways because I appreciate all that you're doing. You're inspirational. So maybe you didn't know that, but I really, really like working with you. Thank you so much. And so
Thank
as we
you.
conclude, just the highlight from today's show, today is an elimination of violence against women. As we know, today is the beginning of the campaign, and it will be ending on the 10th of December, which is Human Rights Day. So this is a message for all men, women to start thinking about violence that are happening in your homes, in your communities, in Ambazonia, how to put that to an end. And then also this past Sunday was World Children's Day. Our children are the future. If we don't give them the bright future that they deserve, then we'll not have a bright future for them. We will not have great communities in years and years to come. So let's take that very important. And the final talk was about referendum. Again, as Dr. Yaya said, it was a teaser. We already know that the answer is a no. It's a no. It's a big, big fat no. And so thank you so much. We look forward to having Ma Rachel back on her seat next Friday. And I want to say, as usual, long live the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, short live the struggle. And thanks to our technicians in the back. God bless you all.
You are watching The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman, exclusively on ABC Amber TV.
Welcome to me.
Magical Hakeem on the beats.
Bongo mbozeo, boshe mbozeo, bonge mbozeo, bububiri ezamno. Bongo mbozeo, boshe mbozeo, bameta mbozeo. Jaule, 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 jaule. tribalism, nepotism. Let's say no to bad energy and embrace some love. To the cloud, to the one, let us live in harmony. Bongo mbozeo, oshe mbozeo, bonge mbozeo, bumbu biri etano. Bongo mbozeo, oshe mbozeo, bameta mbozeo. Dance to this marina. Jaule, 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 jaule. Together we will make a pattern for the land and try to right the wrongs that wake up in the land. Let's say no to tribalism, nepotism. Let's say no to bad energy and embrace some love. To the cloud, to the wall, let us live in harmony. Love, 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 love is all we need.
Magical Hakeem on the beats.
Love, 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 love is all we need. Bongo mbozeo, oshe mbozeo, bonge mbozeo, bumbu biri etano. Bongo mbozeo, oshe mbozeo, bameta mbozeo. Dance to this marina. Jaule, 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 jaule.
Samboy Records.
Welcome to me.
You are watching The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman, exclusively on ABC Amber TV.